Blitz was the bombing of English cities, industrial areas, and towns by the Nazi Luftwaffe. It lasted for 8 months between September 1940 and May 1941. In the summer of 1940, the Germans were winning the aerial battle of Britain. They had almost overwhelmed the British squadrons with their policy of attacking airfields in southern England. Then, with victory days or weeks away, the Germans switched to bombing cities, with their main target being London. This shift apparently started with a squadron of Heinkel bombers getting lost while trying to bomb an airfield in the British countryside. The lost Heinkels were above the city of London at the time, and in a rash decision, they bombed the city. This led to Britain bombing Berlin in retaliation. After a year of uncontested military success, this attack on their homeland shattered Hitler and Göring's egos, and in a moment of strategic failure, Germany released their stranglehold on the RAF and started bombing British cities. The Blitz, which is the German word for lightning, took place across mainly southern England in the industrial centres of Britain. The day assaults started on the 7th of September, and in October, the Luftwaffe switched to night raids, which continued almost uninterrupted well into November for 56 straight days. 4 million women and children were evacuated from London into the safety of the countryside. Despite this, more than 40,000 civilians were killed during the Blitz. To put the 8-month-long Blitz bombing of Britain into perspective, the 40,000 lives lost compares poorly to the 40,000 German civilian lives lost in just one night bombing of Hamburg in 1943, and the 100,000 civilian lives lost in Tokyo in 2 nights of firebombing in 1945. London and other major British industrial cities, such as Manchester, Glasgow, and Coventry, were fairly well prepared for the bombing raids that came after September 1940. Once German bombers were picked up on the newly invented radar, or detected by listening towers, or even by spotters positioned along the coastline, hearing the sound of hundreds of multi-engine planes crossing the channel, target cities would be warned. Air raid sirens would sound. People immediately stopped what they were doing and headed for shelters. In London, the Underground was a perfect place to seek refuge, and Londoners of all classes spent many nights together in the tube. Many homes had Anderson air shelters. Civilians were issued with sandbags and gas masks.
It's important that we should be prepared against gas. Put it on for 10 to 15 minutes, one day a week. It may be a little irksome at first, but you'll soon get used to it.
Hitler hoped to quickly demoralize and crush British morale and force a surrender before turning his attention to Stalin's Russia and the Eastern Front. Story after story from the time shows that the Blitz, far from knocking out British morale, actually strengthened the British resolve to fight on at all costs. Winston Churchill encouraged the civilian population.
From the ferocious onslaught he is preparing, little does he know the spirit of the British nation, or the tough fibre of the Londoners, whose forebears played a leading part in the establishment of parliamentary institutions, and who have been bred to value freedom far above their lives.
Despite daily attacks, rationing of food, and the fact that families were split up by the evacuation, morale remained high. British resistance generated imagery of strength and resilience. Images like that of St. Paul's Cathedral standing in the smoke and rubble after the worst night of bombing in the Blitz, the 29th of December 1940, helped to convince the Americans to aid the British in the years of war to come. My grandfather was one of the 6 Hurricane fighter pilots tasked with patrolling above the cathedral that night. Much is written about the brave, stoic British spirit that refused to surrender in the face of the endless onslaught by the Luftwaffe. There is no doubt that a numerically superior Luftwaffe was seen off by the RAF and their allies. The civilian population of Britain did show incredible bravery as they survived waves of German attacks with massive civilian casualties and more than 1 million houses and buildings destroyed. The Blitz ended in May of 1941. Hitler's plan to knock out the RAF before commencing with a full-scale invasion of Britain had failed. Operation Sea Lion was cancelled. Hitler and Goering's Luftwaffe switched their attention eastward towards Soviet Russia, and this allowed the Allies, with the help of the Americans, to rebuild and eventually invade territories taken by the Germans, and to achieve victory in Europe.